about the very frequently asked questions in pediatrics nowadays is about the different parenting styles. So generation wise parenting styles, this has been broadly subdivided into three broad categories. So nowadays you must have heard, be very familiar with the term which is called as the Gen Z. So Gen Z are those individuals who are born between the years 1996 to 2010. So earlier the generations were, they were Gen X and Gen Y, and Gen Y were also known as the millennials. So in this video I am about what are the different types of parenting styles in all these generations, that is the Gen X, the Gen Y, which are also called as the millennials, and the Gen Z. So starting with, so Gen X, actually this is the time frame in between which falls in the year from between 1965 to the year 1979. So the children, the individuals who were born between 1965 AD to 1979 AD, they were falling under the Gen X category, and during this Gen X category, the parenting style, what was mostly found, it is the authoritative parenting. So parents were mostly authoritative about their children's activities, and in this what do we find is that the parents, they had a constant watch on what their child is doing, and they only appear when their child is in need. So the Gen X generation, which was between 1965 to 1979, at that time the parents were quite authoritative, and during their authoritative position they used to have a constant check on what their children are doing, on what their child is doing, but they would only appear to help or guide their son or daughter when they are in need. So ultimately the result of such a parenting was that the child becomes very bold, respectful and well mannered. So the Gen X generation, what we actually find is between 1965 to 1979, most oftenly such as the millennials. So during the Gen Y generation, what do we find is that the individuals 1980 AD to 1995, the Gen Y generation, or the millennials, the children, their parents, and actually the parent and during this time places the child as their first priority. So the children were their first priority, and they were giving more importance to the looks. So ultimately the individuals, the children who were in the Gen Y generation, which is also called as the millennials, thus such children they were quite pampered, they became quite selfish and disrespectful. So such children, they became quite disrespectful, and they tendency to easily cry upon very minor issues. They could cry very easily, and they were unable to tolerate the hard situations of life. So they were unable to face the hard situations. This was the characteristic of the Gen Y generations, which is also called as the millennials. So this children, they were in a tendency to cry very easily, and therefore they were unable to tackle or face hard, difficult situations in their life. Now moving on to the third, which is now the very commonly called as the Gen Z generation. So Gen Z generation includes all the children, all the individuals who were born between the time slot of the year 1996 AD to 2010 AD. And in this type of parenting, the parenting style, what is being followed, it is the permissive parenting. Means the parents are permitting everything what their children are doing, and they are allowing their children to do whatever things. So that is actually the right angle type of parenting, which is also called as the permissive parenting. And in this permissive parenting, what the parents were actually, they were quite negligent about their children's behavior. So the parents became quite negligent towards what their children are doing, and as they are, because such kind of a negligence developed just because the parents, they got quite involved in their own personal lives. So the parents of the children who are, most of the parents who are born in, most of the children who are born between the ages of 1996 to 2010 year, it has been mostly found that such parents of these children are mostly quite negligent, just because they are self-occupied in their own world and they are more busy with their own stuff. So that's the right angle type of parenting, which is also called as the permissive parenting. And ultimately the result of such a parenting was that the child has less human values and respect. So students and viewers, this was a very short discussion while I have discussed in simple terms about the generation wise parenting. And in this generation wise parenting, we have three different categories: the Gen X, the Gen Y, which are also called as the millennials, just because they were born in the year from 1980 to 1995, they were the Gen Y, and the 1996 to 2010, they comprises of the Gen Z generation. So students, this was how the parenting is there and what are the impact of such a parenting on children. So students and viewers, this was a very short discussion about the generation wise parenting styles. If you still have any queries or comments, you are most welcome to comment me in the comment section. And those students and viewers who are new to my channel, who haven't subscribed, subscribe, and don't forget to press the bell icon so that you can be further updated for my upcoming videos. Thank you for watching.